She was the evilest billionaire ever. What is evil? Who is evil? Without a question, the worst examples of terrible or evil persons are the dictators that killed millions of people, including Hitler, Stalin, Saddam Hussein, and Pol Pot. Some billionaires are downright evil because they just care about themselves and their financial success. Leona Helmsly must be the worst billionaire ever. Many people believe she was the devil himself reincarnated. Have you ever heard this story of Leona, who passed away in 1987 and left a large sum of money to a dog? She was called Queen of Mean, Dragon Lady, and Rhymes with Rich by the tabloid media. If you enjoy good stories, you're in for a threat. Let's look at the day in her life before we talk about her background and how she became a billionaire. One day, her assistant for the last year called in sick. Just 2 hours after the phone call, the assistant got a personal message delivered at her door from Leona thanking her for her services. She got fired because Leona couldn't have an assistant that called in sick. That's not the only story about her firing people. Leona owned hotels, and one day, as she walked through a hotel lobby, she saw a security guard on the phone while he was on the job. Leona walked over, hanged up the phone, and told the security guard he was fired and had 1 minute to leave her hotel. Leona Mindy Rosenthal was born on July 4, 1920 in New York City. Helmsley went to public schools in New York City and graduated from high school. She then went to Hunter College in New York City to study English. The smart and pretty young woman decided after her sophomore year that there were faster ways to get ahead, so she quit Hunter and went into modeling, which paid better. After a few years as a model, she married lawyer Leo Penzier in 1939 and had a son named Jay. Helmsley and Penzier got a divorce when their son was grown up, and Leona, who was 42 at the time, had to go back to work. In 1962, she got a job at a New York real estate company as a receptionist. She moved up quickly from salesperson to broker to senior vice president in the 7 years she worked for the company. From there, Leona started her own company. This became a success. She made millions. 2 years later, Leona was offered a job as vice president at Brown Harris Stevens, a property management company that was a branch of Helmsley's Spear. Harry Helmsley, who was a co-owner of the company, liked Leona for more than just her work. Within a year, he divorced his first wife of 33 years and married Leona. The story about how everything happened so quickly was that Leona had Harry in her power. She told him he had to get rid of his first wife, so he did. Leona had won the lottery and became a billionaire when she married Harry without a prenup. Harry's company entered the hotel market in the 1970s, building and owning hotels. They constructed the Helmsley Palace Hotel on Madison Avenue, as well as the famed Empire State Building. The company grew into a big hotel chain with more than 5,000 employees. In 1980, Leona was made the company's president. Then she was in charge and made all the decisions. A former employee said this about Leona: she yelled, screamed, and fired her employees for the smallest mistakes or for not being perfect enough for her. Even though, as an ex-employee, is thought to have tried to kill her, she never seemed to understand the consequences of her actions and kept treating people in the horrible way she was used to. A biographer wrote about her. Harry and Leona were charged in 1989 with evading $4 million in income taxes. All kinds of tales concerning Leona's leadership style were made public during the trial. She had a conflict with more than 100 suppliers. She used every excuse to not pay or to get discount when the job was done. When a plumbing company put in a new sinks in several rooms, Leona wouldn't pay because the water coming out of the sinks wasn't blue enough for her. A painting contractor testified that Leona wouldn't pay an $88,000 bill for work he had done because she was entitled to a commission for the $800,000 worth of other jobs he had got. Some employers were hardly ever paid on time, if at all, and many filed lawsuits to recover even just a portion of what they were owed. When Leona visited her hotels, she was known for her white glove inspection routes. She once found a room that didn't live up to her expectations. She informed the maid that she would be fired. The maid begged and told Leona that she had 6 children to support and asked her for a second chance. Leona responded, "You should have kept your pants on, then this wouldn't have been a problem." There were a lot more stories that came out of the trial, but we'll end with one about the assistant manager who was fired for being 1 minute late to a meeting. Leona had all her hotel managers and their assistants meet with her. One assistant manager came 1 minute late. Leona, who was talking when he came in, raised her voice and asked him to tell her why he was late. He said that he was a little late because there had been a fire in his apartment. "This isn't a good enough reason for being late," Leona said, and fired him. In the New York society, in years before her trial, she was not a popular person and had a personal feud with Donald Trump. Trump called Leona a disgrace to the industry and a disgrace to humanity in general. Leona didn't fancy Trump either and responded with, "I wouldn't trust him if his tongue was notarized." A personal tragedy occurred for Leona when her son died 42 years of age of a heart attack. When terrible things happen, families tend to stick together. For Leona, no. She took his son's widow to court to get the money she spent to fly her son's body from Florida to New York. She didn't win the case. Back to the trial, Leona received a 4-year prison sentence, 750 hours of community service, and a $7.1 million tax fraud fine. One servant testified in court that she had heard Leona saying only little people pay taxes. Harry was deemed incompetent to stand trial. In his sentence, federal judge John Walker publicly reprimanded her, saying, "Your conduct was the product of naked greed and the arrogant belief that you were above the law." She started her sentence in a minimum security facility in Danbury, Connecticut at age 68. When she was released, she stepped back from the Helmsly Hotel organization at first. As a felon, she could not participate in an organization that held a liquor license. After some years, she was back in charge and news stories about her surfaced. In 2001, Leona settled a suit out of court with an employee who claimed she wrongfully fired him after learning he was gay. In 2003, another employee won a jury award of $11.2 million against her after alleging he was also wrongfully fired because he was gay. In 1997, Harry, her husband, died at the age of 87, leaving Leona to declare, "My fairy tale is over. I lived a magical life with Harry." Leona died at the age of 87 on August 20th, 2007, a heart failure. In true Queen of Mean fashion, Leona left to her grandchildren nothing, but established a $12 million trust for her dog, Trouble, to ensure that she received maintenance and welfare at the highest standards of care. The dog Trouble, like Leona, was not loved. It had bitten a long list of people and died in 2011 after living a luxurious life with his own assistant and security guard. The additional grandkids shared $10 million. A judge concluded in 2008 that Helmsly was mentally incompetent when she had made her will, and he modified it to include money for all her grandkids. The remainder of her wealth, excluding the millions she went to her brother and grandkids, was given to a trust. The value of her estate was $4 billion. And that was the story about Leona. Do you like great stories? Well, check out the video about Nora, that was a school dropout at the age of 12 and became a multi-millionaire by the age of 16. That's all for now. I hope to see you in the next one.